what could be done about that? How we could tackle that maybe in our communities, or let's say also in the corporate environment, just to do it in a better way and get to the root cause, treat it like breast cancer for whatever whatever illness you might like to put there. Hello and welcome aboard. Get ready for a new journey here at the Virtual Frontier. Great you have found your way back to the show, and if you just joined recently, hit the subscribe button right away so you'll never miss new episodes. Today I'm joined by Dr. Ralf Friedrich. Ralf is an expert when it comes to coaching virtual teams, and he's also a mental health first aid instructor. What? Mental health first aid, you might ask? Yes, you got it right. As every organization above a certain headcount has a dedicated first aid responder for accidents at the workspace, Ralf is convinced, and in my view, righteously convinced, that we not only need first aid responders for physical accidents, but also for mental health issues. But this is still going to be a long way, as in most organizations, mental health issues are blacked out whenever possible and hidden on the individual level out of fear that the mental health issue could affect the career or reputation. Let's take off and see how those fundamental issues could be tackled. So, hello Ralf, welcome to the Virtual Frontier, a new episode. I'm really happy to have you here on the show. Since a few months, I'm following your work and what you're doing, and it's really nice to see. But before we start off, maybe you want to give our listeners a short introduction. Who's Ralf? What you're doing, and so we can take it from there.
First of all, thanks for being here, Daniel. I'm really looking forward to our interview. I'm Ralf. I'm based in Hamburg, Germany, and I run a coaching center and a psychotherapeutic practice. And I'm heavily engaged in the field of mental health, first aid, and mental fitness. So it's very important for me to break the ice for mental illnesses, that the people are more accepted. So that's really my mission in life, and I'm so thankful that I can talk about this tonight.
Yeah, and it's a huge and important topic. Could we, before we start off with the different questions, first define or clarify what makes a good state of mental health, and probably how it looks, and probably in the next section, what are signs to see if I'm not well, probably first on my own or probably on others, and what could be done about that?
Yeah. There's this whole psychology, this whole positive psychology. The positive psychology was heavily defined or largely defined by a person called Seligman. And he said, okay, a lot of approaches in psychology is really based on problems and deficiencies. And he started to take it from another point of view and said, okay, what need people to in order to stay fit, to stay happy, and how can you reactivate resources? So he did a lot of work in this field, which means basically you have to have good relationships. So relationships are very important. You have to have a positive attitude. You need to be appreciated. There's encouragement going on. And so people who have a positive mindset are more likely to stay fit mentally. So, and basically the World Health Organization defines mental problems when you have not enough resources, when you're getting into problems. And mental health is when you have a lot of resilience and you stay really within your own powers. So, and we all moving from one pole to the other. I'll give you an example out of my own life. You see, I've moved to Hamburg middle of February this year, 2020. And because my marriage is over and I decided to go back where I came from. And when I moved to Hamburg in the middle of the lockdown, Surely I had a couple of nights where I slept not very well.
I can imagine.
But basically, I had enough resilience and resources to keep me back, to keep me going. So if my resources would not have been enough, it's very likely that I would have developed a kind of light depression, for example. So it heavily depends on how you deal with the situations you're faced in life and how you keep on top of it by having the right amount of resources and resilience available. So on the other hand, nobody decides to wake up one day and say, oh, what can I do today? So depression would be a good thing to do. Never tried this in my life. Let's go for it.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically people get very slowly into a mental health issue, into a mental health problem. And sometimes people don't know or don't notice that they are changing. Because it's so slowly, you have more thoughts, you feel a little bit less unhappy. You wake up at 3 o'clock for 10 minutes, you wake up for 3 o'clock for 20 minutes, you wake up for 3 o'clock for half an hour. So it's a sliding process. And because the self-awareness is not there, you need other people around you who make you aware that something's going on with you. So, and that's the idea of mental health first aid, that people develop an awareness for symptoms of mental health problems, so that they can start the conversation about it. Which, what I've noticed out of my courses I'm running, that's we're approaching a taboo there. So a lot of people have no idea how to approach a conversation about mental health problems.
Sure.
And the best thing is to stay fit. To stay fit, to have positivity in your life, to have good relationships in your life. The Japanese philosophy, I don't know whether you know this, is called Ikigai. They have a lot of... Yeah?
Yeah, I saw it in your work, yes.
Yeah. There are some guidelines how you can stay happy. And one of the things what I really like, and I have to practice it a little bit, never eat too much. Always stop eating while you are still hungry. So there are little things you can do in your life. Or for example, another thing you can do is you can write in the evening in your daily journal. By the way, journaling is very important to stay mentally fit. So write a journal each day a little bit about the highlights of the day. Be proud of yourself will be a good thing in order to stay mentally fit. And then you write into your journal 3 things you are looking forward for the next day, to be thankful for, and which you will enjoy. And this can be little things. You see, what I really like when I'm having my shower in the morning, you see I have a rain shower, and I really enjoy showering in the morning. This is little 5 minutes, but it's the first thing in the day, which is so important to stay mentally fit.
Yeah. How you start your day, that will define how your day goes, right?
Yes. And even if I had a bad night's sleep, being in the shower and enjoying myself there for 5 minutes is something I'm looking forward to each day when I'm in my apartment. That's something what I've noticed, what I'm missing when I'm not in my apartment because I'm traveling.
Yeah.
So be thankful for little things and looking forward for the things you really like to appreciate the next day. That's the thing to stay mentally fit.
2 things stood out to me there. I would like to follow up. First, you mentioned just as you moved to Hamburg, you didn't feel so well maybe for a couple of days and you didn't sleep well. Those are things that you could fight off or cope with your resilience that you have already built up. When does the point come where you should probably seek out for help or speak to someone, articulate in some way with a third or a second person that you have a problem or that you don't feel well? Where should I do the difference?
The thing really is, most probably yourself, you will not notice really that you're developing a mental health problem. It's more your friends, it's more the family, it's more the colleagues who have to be aware of this and approach the conversations. So they say, well, I've noticed over the last 3 to 4 weeks, you're not smiling anymore. You're not laughing so much anymore. So, and I'm really concerned about you because I always enjoyed when you were laughing. So what's going on in your life? And I think that's really important to have conversations like this. Is that you see, okay, my colleague, my friend, my partner, something's going on there. A mental health problem normally develops over time. It has to be present for at least 2 weeks before we can classify it. There's a diagnosis manual out, which is called the ICD-10, International Classification of Diseases. In the US, they use the DCM-5, which is a similar approach to diagnose mental health problems or mental health disorders. So if the person is 1 or 2 days in an unhappy state, there's nothing to worry. It only starts to worry after about 4 weeks, I would say. And it's very unlikely that you will notice it before. And then the environment will notice the change. Because it's most likely that on a subconscious level you may notice this, but this is hitting the blind spot. You know the Johari window? Which I know, you know, I don't know, you don't know. And normally, developing a mental health problem is a blind spot for the person, him or herself or theirself. So it's very important that the environment is addressing this issue to this person. And in some cases, there can be also a resistance. I'm convinced people notice there's a change going on, but they don't want to believe that the change is going on because there's so much stigma around mental health problems. So, interestingly enough, also, for example, depression is shown differently between women and men. Women get a little bit more emotional, and men is reacting with a lot of more aggressive behavior. Also, aggressive behavior towards themselves, because they notice they're not bringing the performance, something is going on, and hence important that the environment is giving them the feedback very, very early on. But when men don't get depressions, men get burnout. Which is basically the same thing.
Why is it that there's still so much hiding on the one side and this stigmatizing on the other side when it comes to mental health issues? And especially there, I see it in the corporate environment and moreover with the male population. Let's put it like that in general.
Interesting you say this. By the way, if you look at the statistics show something else. If you look at the statistics, you can see about twice as many women are reported having mental health issues than men. There's only one specific mental health problem where the ratio is different, where you have double the man as a woman, and this is with alcohol and substance abuse problems, which means men start with misguided self-medication. So they say instead of seeing a professional, they have a discussion with Johnny Walker.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. And particularly in the corporate world, if I'm a manager and I'm in charge of people, and I have to admit that I cannot cope with the situation anymore because with the COVID situation, with the client situation, with lockdowns, perhaps everything is getting too much for myself. They are afraid that they will say, okay, you cannot be a manager anymore. So instead of believing that the organization will provide the necessary support to them, they say, okay, most probably I will get punished because I do not bring the performance anymore. Hence, they're not open to this. On the other hand, the stigmatization is something which is really real. I can give you an example here in Germany. A friend of mine, she's a doctor, and her friend had really love problems, which means when she studied, her relationship broke up, and she saw a psychologist for 3 sessions to overcome the profound sadness that the relationship is over. And when she opened her own practice, she's a GP, then, and she wanted to have an insurance against the liability for herself when she's getting sick, that she gets continuous payment and stuff like this. She was refused by the insurance company because she had already psychotherapeutic treatments during the young age, and this is completely ridiculous. I know a lot of people who want to become teachers here, and they shortly become, before their final exam, they really have nervous breakdowns and things like this. Yeah. They don't tell it anybody because they're afraid, because otherwise they will not get the job as a teacher.
Or probably in consequence, the health insurance in their practice.
And all the stuff like this. So, and you see, mental health problems and disorders are diagnosable diseases. You can, for example, see this. If a woman has breast cancer, everybody in the surrounding will say, we are so sorry for you, it must be very hard, and all the stuff like this, okay?
Yeah.
We know that the load and the lost years of life, happiness, and fulfillment of breast cancer is a similar thing as if you suffer a heavy depression. But when you have a heavy depression, a lot of people say, okay, don't worry about this. Then I see this Netflix movie and you are happy again and stuff like this. There's absolutely no comprehension amongst the surrounding with mental health issues. So that's one thing. The other thing is, in a lot of cases, there are no mental health professionals available to help you. And we have at least in Germany, we have a shortage of them, and I think it's the same all over the world. And many people cannot afford psychotherapeutic treatments because it costs money, you see. It costs round about like having a luxury summer vacation. So you have the choice, do I go on a luxury summer vacation or do I go into a psychotherapeutic treatments? So there are choices to make. So these are the main reasons. And the person, him, herself, themselves, they don't see that they need to see a professional. That's another thing which comes on top of this.
What could be done about that? How we could tackle that maybe in our communities, or let's say also in the corporate environment, just to do it in a better way and get to the root cause, treat it like breast cancer for whatever whatever illness you might like to put there.
The thing is that since the year 2000, there's a global program out which is called Mental Health First Aid.
Yeah.
MHFA. And basically, the idea was there was a nurse, Betty Kitchener, and she got depression herself. And she said there was nobody available to give first aid to her. And saying, hey, something's going wrong, see a professional. And together with a psychiatrist, the two developed the idea of creating this 2 days training where everybody can learn the basics of mental health, of mental health problems, and how to talk to the people, and how to address, how to start a conversation. And I think that's very important. But everybody who wants to get a driver's license has to go on a first aid course, correct? And then you learn all the stuff, and it's very, very likely that you will never use this stuff in real life. And how likely is it that you find somebody subconscious that you have to provide first aid? And on the other hand, you have to see, at least in Germany, about 30% of the population is at risk each year to develop a mental health issue, which is quite a lot, isn't it? So it's significantly more likely that you will be providing mental health first aid than the normal first aid. And the people need to get a qualification in order to do this. So basically, they have to understand, how does it work from a mental health problems perspective. This means they need to know, okay, this person seems that he or she is developing depression. And then they learn how to talk to this person. So there's a model behind, the communication model, which is called in German Roger. The English original word is algae. And watcher stands for you react, which is basically the hardest thing to do. Reacting and saying, okay, I need to talk to you, I observe something. Then you really need to be open, because people with mental health. Okay, so mental health first responders, they learn a communication model, and this communication model is called watcher. In English, it's called algae. So I think watcher is a nicer way to express the model. And R stands for respond. So you see somebody's developing a mental health issue, and you contact this person proactively in a very nice way. And while you're talking to this person, you also look for signs of a crisis. Then what's very important, open communication, which means we really manage ourselves and accept the person, how the person is, and approach them empathically, and also ask them, how do they feel? That's the O. And in many cases, particularly if you have an alcohol or drug abuse issue on hands, it's very important to stay only at the R and the O, not go any further at all. So you repeat this. The next one is give information. Give information that mental health issues are common, that they are clearly defined, that they can be diagnosed. And also give support in the psychosocial area, which means do the people need to apply for certain funds in order to get therapy? Do they need support in the schooling system, stuff like this? The next one is encourage to see a professional. And the last one is reactivate resources. And it's a model, which means basically you have 5 building blocks, and you use the building blocks as you go along, okay? So you use, for example, respond, reactivate resources, be open, respond, give information. So basically you go with the flow. And this will help the person a lot. And encourage the person to seek professional help. This can be self-help. This can be reliable resources on the internet. This can be mental health apps, for example. So lots of things that people can do themselves. Because if somebody wants to recover from a mental health problem, so there are 5 things the person has to do. First of all, the person needs to have hope. Hope that he or she or they can get healthy again. And they need to have a certain motivation. And say, okay, I can do this. They need information. Information about what's possible. And they need to be encouraged, support. And then they also need to be in charge of themselves. This means the responsibility, accountability has to stay with them. For example, if you see a normal doctor, if you see a GP, basically you say, no, doctor, here's my body, do something. And then the doctor will do something with the body, and you will be happy again, like, for example, taking some pills or getting some injections and stuff like this. In mental health, it works differently. In mental health, it works in such a way that the person has to do a lot of work on himself, herself, themselves, in order to get healthy again. And that's really the issue. That's the issue that the people need to work between the sessions heavily on the issues in order to recover quickly. And hence, all these things are known by mental health first aiders, and they can then provide the information. Now you said we have an issue with the workplace. Because when you see somebody's not performing, you don't know, is it a sorry.
Kein Problem.
So at the workplace, if you're a manager and you see somebody's not bringing the performance, then you need to address this. On one hand, there can be a mental health problem behind, that the person is not bringing the performance anymore. But on the other hand, you cannot really accept that the person is is delivering a lower performance than the rest of the team, because then the rest of the team will get angry. And what I've noticed, what's coming more and more, is that companies implement the role of a mental health first aider, first responder. So which means it's an organizational role. The people are known in the company, and people can anonymously go to these people and say, okay, I have an issue. And when the people have this, it provides the right sense of safety and security. And also for the managers, this would be good to have a person where they can redirect the people to and say, okay, it's not for me. I see you have an issue. I would like to see that you're contacting these people and encourage them. And then they will do the right conversations. The impact of these mental health first aid courses are phenomenal. I just received an email this week where there was a young teacher who was in a course, and he said, okay, he had a student, and she never showed up for any exams. And normally he was ready to give her a failed mark. But then he spoke to her and using the Roger principle. And he noticed that this young woman is really anxious and presenting something. So they found a different way where she can present something without being in front of the class, so that she can pass the course. And he said he would never thought about this before he attended the course. So there are lots of good things going on. And you need to also to understand that about 2/3 of the mental health issues start before the age of 25. Which means particularly people in the teenage times, they're very vulnerable to get a mental health problem, and this is wrongly diagnosed in many cases, unfortunately. So very important that the teachers, that the parents are really aware of the situation, what's going on there. And we are living in difficult times, mainly due to the pandemic. So hence it's important that more and more people get a good understanding of how does mental health work, what's the mental health problem, and how can I help, and how can I be supportive. And this needs to be learned. It's a lot of things has to do with knowledge, and the other thing with practice. Having conversations on a regular basis. And also at the workplace, these roles are more and more on demand. And I'm happy to see that the world is changing towards a good way, in a good sense, that more and more organizations accept that mental health first aid is important.
But as you just pointed out, I think this is also really a systemic problem. Just mentioned that a huge amount of young people are already developing those kind of mental health issues. And isn't it the point that we are setting the wrong narratives? Just let's start with the basic things. What makes us happy, right? We're getting from the young age educated in the wrong direction. Looking for a great job and whatever that might be, have a good income, a great salary, whatever, a nice house. And those things are not making us really happy, but most of the education is focused more in this direction than really focusing on the things what makes us really happy. I was seeing that also in your work, and I had heard about that before, and I just would like to put it out. And there was a work done on the Harvard School of Public Health a couple of years by Solnick and Hemingway, where they did an interesting experiment where they offered students two different options of job, right? There you can earn $50,000 per year, while your coworkers will all earn just $30,000. And on the other side, or the other model was you could earn $100,000, and all of your colleagues, coworkers would earn $120,000, and they would be given the choice to choose one of them. And the huge amount it's crazy, the huge amount, over 50% choose lower salary just to stay ahead of their coworkers. And this is so ridiculous. And this happens in so many different areas of work and education also, where we really would have to look out for, right?
Yeah, it's called wrong wishing or wrong wishes, which means we strive for something which gives us short-term happiness instead of long-term happiness. There are other studies out, for example, the happiness factors in the US dropped over the last a couple of years, and whereby the happiest country in the world is Bhutan, a very small state in the Himalaya, which I think is quite interesting. And the people there, they have a significantly more relaxed lifestyle, and they are happier with the things they have. We see a lot of things going on, and particular one of the aspects which makes us unhappy is social media. Because on social media, you don't show your weaknesses and your sadnesses. You only show how many friends you have, how great you are, what you achieve. Your fears, your anxiety has no space in social media. So basically, you have a big circle of your life, and just one little dot is what you publish on social media. And then when the other people see, oh, this person is so happy, so happy, so happy, their own unhappiness is getting amplified. So which means they're more likely to develop a mental health problem. And I think that's the thing we need to view as well. So we have significantly more exposure. The last 2 years, we only get very negative comments with the pandemic. So here in Germany, they say, no, in this city, we have already 4 cases of the new mutant and stuff like this. So what? After this mutant, we will have hundreds of other mutants, more than the Greek alphabet will ever give us options to. And we have to learn and to deal with this situation. And we still have to see, okay, what are the great things which are going on, and what are the little things which keeps us laugh and joy each and every day. And sometimes I think it's good to just shut down all the negative news around you for some time to get grounded again, or do something which really makes you happy each day. And like this, perhaps we can help the people. So, for example, if you have children, spend time with them, play with them. This will help you a lot, and this will create good encounters, experiences. Shut down your mobile phone after 6 o'clock. So the little things you can do in order to improve your own happiness. And I think at the end of the day, happiness is very important, because nobody will take the money with him in the next life. And
as you mentioned it already like several times in this conversation, I would like to point it out. It's like the small things that makes the difference there, right? Getting enough sleep, be kind to other persons, connect with others, just mention family around, community, whatever it is. And many may be saying, okay, this is a huge activity. No, it's not. It's like the small continuously activities that will lead you to a better state of mental health. And if you just care about each of them a little bit, then that will help you. That's my assumption.
Yes. One powerful thing is if you provide really good praise to everybody around you. So if you see somebody did something well, you really emphasize what the other person did well, and this will make the other person significantly happier, and yourself as well. You see, because then you will see more good things around you, which will help. I had a call yesterday with a CEO of a company who is part of a larger company, but really a little bit into trouble, and we brainstormed solutions and came up with a brainstorm. He said, oh no, have a problem there. And then second one, have a problem there. Third one, have a problem there. And I said, did you ever notice that for every possible solution which you could pursue, you only react with a problem statement? And just by pointing this out to him, it changed his mindset completely. It shifted his energy instantaneously. So he said, you're right. I was completely in a circle where I couldn't get out anymore. So you need people around you who also provide you good feedback and honest feedback to change your mind, to shift your mind, to build up energy again. So relationships are very, very important. I think this, the worst thing which can happen to you is if you're too much alone, if you encounter too much loneliness in your own life.
What could be done about that in the corporate environment? Let's say now we are having working more and more in different work settings, remote work setting, virtual team settings. So we can foster this environment where it's okay on the one side to showing vulnerability, on the other side to say, okay, I'm not feeling well, I need help, seeking out for this first aid, however that might look in the individual situation. But how could it be fostered there in a corporate environment? Because the economic weight on this is like heavy. How much money is and resources are lost and spent and wasted every year on not treated or badly treated mental health issues.
I see. First of all, with the pandemic, the home office work increased significantly. And a lot of people, first of all, they don't really have a nice home office place. I know many people who have the home office working place in the bedroom, which I think is vicious. Because the room where you recover and the room you work is then collapsing, which I think is psychologically really the wrong thing to do. Now, on the other hand, if you are in your mid-40s to mid-50s, for example, and you live on your own and you don't have any children, and you're only working with your computer, don't see anybody, don't touch anybody anymore, you really can get very, very lonely. And when you were working in your company premise, on the company premises, people were there and you can see them. You went for lunch together, you had a coffee break together. In the US, you meet on the water cooler. And all these things are gone. On the other hand, what's also possible is that people spend more time talking to each other as well, or chatting informally from time to time. There are also apps out where you say, I go on a coffee break, and another person says, I'm going on a coffee break, and the system puts the people together randomly so that they make no new networks in the company. I think that's quite fun. On the other hand, it's also important that the manager is seeking also a contact on a more personal level. And I know a lot of managers have issues with this. On the other hand, if you don't have a good and strong relationship and you don't know what's going on in the life of your co-workers, it's very hard to be effective and to be helpful and supportive. So at the end of the day, it's important that we have a good open heart for the needs and the anxieties of the people. I think it needs a shift in the management paradigm. That we are not there to get the maximum out of the people, but we are there that the people can perform well and creating a surrounding and environment where the people can perform. And therefore, I think also managers should have a basic knowledge of how mental health is working, on top of all the other things they need to know. So knowledge, and having a good attitude and good values are important in order to change the situation and build connections. At the end of the day, it will all come down to the relationship you have.
No, and as you just mentioned before, with the first aid in each company for normal accidents, whatever, the percentage is really low that you use it. But if you compare it with the mental health issue, or the percentage of mental health issue that are presented in whatever environment, then probably that should be something in the basic managerial education that everyone should do that, right? More, no.
I'm fully with you, Daniel. I'm fully with you. I think everybody should be educated in mental health first aid, because there's a need, and there's a growing need. There's a growing need because we are really in a time where the world is heavily under stress. Everybody's pressed for time. Now everybody has very full schedules now, and there's a lot of fear going on in the world as well right now. Don't know what will happen with the pandemic. We will not happen. What will happen with China and the US and Russia and Ukraine and so many changes going on. And this can eat up a lot of resources you have.
That's the point. Yeah. What brings me to my next question? What is this? What is at stake if we are not really taking this serious, as individuals, but also in the organizational level, to care about the well-being of my employees or co-workers, whatever. What is at stake if we're not taking it really seriously, and also the actions toward it?
I think if you have an environment where the people take care of their mental health, mental fitness, people are more likely to perform well and being less sick. Because you see, if you get into a burnout, it's a well-researched process now. It has 12 steps before you're really completely burned out, and it takes years to get into this full burnout. So if companies avoid burnouts, then they avoid a lot of long-term sickness leave, and they will create more creativity and happiness in the company, and this will excel in performance. And because it's not really financially quantifiable to a cent, some managers don't believe in it. But I know from my own experience, people who are mentally fit and who enjoy their work, they're ready to go the extra mile and don't see this as a burden. But by people who are always pressed out and they're low in energy, they don't bring up the right creative solutions for the times we're living in. So for me, it will be a competitive differentiator of a company, whether they invest actively in the mental health of the co-workers or not. And companies who will do this will be significantly more successful than companies who don't do this.
I mean, it's kind of logical on the one side, right? If you see that there is a company that cares really about the well-being and mental health from their employees, they just perform better. We're not even talking about high performance per se, but yes. If your body is well, if you have that's something personal, right? Also, if you have slept well, you can do more things and with less tirement on the other side, and still be full of energy.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, and the motivation will be there, and you will get the acknowledgements and the achievements you really need, and this will be a positive circle, a self-empowering system. So I hope that more and more managers will go for this. More and more companies will see that that's basically their route to success.
Do you see it just to round it up for today? Do you have positive outlooks? We just catch up on that, or positive examples what you see in your environment of work, or as well in at your work in general, things that are going really well or developing well in this space of work of mental health or well-being.
It's a mega trend. It's really a mega trend. What I see is there are more and more institutions coming up, out now, popping up, providing mental health, mental fitness for companies. I see that companies are establishing hotlines for their employees in order to contact them on an anonymous basis. I see a lot of tech companies coming up in this area, where you have apps, which gives you day-to-day practice, which you can do little things. So more and more of these mental health activities will be supported by technology. And there are already studies out which show that there's a bot with artificial intelligence who can provide conversations to somebody who's suffering depression nearly with the same degree of effectiveness as a human being.
Yeah.
Which I think is amazing. However, these things are all very, very structured, and at some stage it will fail because it cannot be intelligent as such, and there's no connection between the body and the brain. It's a machine. It only has a brain. And basically, we as human beings, we have to see ourselves as an entire system. And what I see now in terms of mental fitness and mental health is that more and more approaches in psychotherapy and in mental health are connecting the brain and the body. So I see there are lots of trends coming up in this area, a lot of changes in this area, that psychotherapy will be more fun and lighthearted than the old versions of psychotherapy where you lay down on a couch and you really have to associate on the pictures coming up to your mind. And so I see a lot of positive trends in the therapy approach. I see also that coaching is developing back more into mental health coaching. So we had a time where coaching was only in the sports sector, and we had a time where coaching was in the business sector, but not connecting the mind and the body. And I see now that really highly qualified coaches can work with the mind and the body. So I'm very optimistic. I'm very optimistic that we will see good improvements and achievements over the next couple of years. And I think a lot of these achievements have only been possible because we have been in the pandemic. I see the pandemic as an accelerator for mental health, mental fitness.
That's a good perspective on that, a good outlook. Ralf, any closing thoughts? Something you would like to give away for our audience that is today listening? Something important, some sort of from on your life?
I really said, okay, if you haven't been on a mental health first aid course yourself, go for it. It can be really life-saving for your friends, families, and colleagues if you approach them early on. And to close this interview with a little case I had. You see, 2 years ago, there was a mother coming with her daughter to my practice. She was 19 years old, and she was developing OCD, obsessive compulsory disorder. So, and she said, okay, can you take her? Because normally in the public system, you have to wait between 18 to 24 months in Germany, in some areas. And 4 months later, she was free of symptoms, which was a success story. Worked pretty well. Her compliance was excellent. So 4 months later, she was free of symptoms. OCD was gone. I have another client, and I think I'm her 8th therapist, and she's with me now for 4 years, and she will be with me, I guess, for another year. Because it's so long that she's fighting with this. So the best service you can give to your friend, to your family member, to your colleague is if you spot a change in their mental health, to talk to them quickly so that they can seek professional help quickly, because this will improve tremendously their time where they will recover. So get educated and spread the word. That's my message to the audience. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much for the conversation, Ralf. Today, thank you for your time and your insights. When people would like to know more about you, about your work, how can they find you, or how should they approach?
I have several websites out, so I think the best thing is just send me an email, and I have and I think you will link it in this podcast where they can contact me anytime. Send me a message on WhatsApp, on LinkedIn, wherever, and I'm happy to talk to you about mental health and how to get qualified there. And happy to talk to as many people out there as possible.
And hope that they will take the chances and opportunities. Thank you very much again, and have a nice afternoon there.
Yes.
Bye.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.
Back we are from a journey into the world of mental health on the corporate level. We hope you'll take the next steps and implement a mental health first aid responder in your organization. When you feel that you need to do something about your personal state of mental health, look out for assistance. This could be a person of your trust or a mental health professional. The key is not to wait and take the first step. We hope you found this session helpful and you got some practical takeaways on how to build a work environment where mental health and the well-being are the same important as physical integrity. What have you missed in this episode? How can we do better? Let us know in the comments and reviews. And as always, before you leave, hit the subscribe button, give us a thumb up, and share the session around with your friends and colleagues. Your action helps us to grow this show and keep you informed and updated on trending topics about the future of work. On behalf of the team here at the Virtual Frontier, I want to thank you for listening. So until the next episode, keep exploring new frontiers.